So, the first question that we're going to look at, what is the strategy that we follow for reading part C, is we first look at the heading. Now, looking at this heading, digital therapeutics, what comes to your mind? Can you imagine what it would be about? Digital therapeutics without being able to read the paragraph? Can you understand it just from the heading? What comes to your mind when you think about the word digital and when you look at the word therapeutics? Any idea? The word therapeutics, what does it mean? We use it for treatment modalities. Yes. Some exercises are done for therapeutic purposes. There are therapeutic applications of certain therapies. So, therapeutic refers to curative treatment, and digital, it is a very common word these days, right? Digital means something which is done with the help of technology, something which is done virtually, something which is done through internet, okay, without physical contact. So digital therapeutics. Therapeutics is the way of treatment. It is usually the equipment or the form of treatment that you use is known as therapeutics. So when I look at any of the reading part C questions, the heading may give you some hint about the topic. If you are not able to understand it through the heading, then reading the first 2-3 lines of paragraph would give you an idea about what the overall topic is. However, in some of the paragraphs, how the writer would initiate the paragraph is by giving an example rather than explaining the term digital therapeutics. Right? So here also the question is asking, the writer suggests that the main benefit, okay, so your keyword here is what is the main benefit of digital therapeutics compared to conventional treatment. What does this word mean? Conventional treatment? Does anyone know the meaning of word conventional? Yeah, conventional is traditional, regular, routine is conventional. So here the writer is comparing digital therapeutics with conventional treatment. And we have to find out what is the main benefit of digital treatment. So you can see here the writer has given example of a patient called Anne, and she is a 22-year-old girl who could bring her blood sugar levels under control and lose weight. And the medicine that she used is not a new type of medication, but it is a smartphone app called Blue Star. So her blood sugar levels came under control. She has, I'm sorry, I misinterpreted this. She is not 22-year-old, but she has diabetes for 22 years. And her blood sugar came under control only after starting this new form of treatment, which is not a medication but a smartphone app. Now, with this example, the writer is questioning, this is writer's question. Can an app replace a pill? Is the big question behind an emerging trend. Emerging means something which is evolving, developing, known as digital therapeutics. So here the writer has explained what he means by the word digital therapeutics. So here one example of digital therapeutics is a smartphone app. Now the writer has given further description, the idea that software can improve a person's health as much as a drug can, but without the same cost and side effects. So, as much as a drug can means that it is as effective as the drug, but it does not have the same cost or same side effects. Something that medical professionals everywhere will be interested in. So, if we look at the comparison, the question is mainly asking what is the main benefit. So, we have to pay attention to the comparison that the writer has made. So writer has made comparison in three different ways. One is the effectiveness, is when they say can improve a person's health. So effectiveness is as much as a drug can. What do you mean by this phrase? As much as a drug can. This is as effective as a drug. Yes, it can improve a person's health as much as a drug can. So the effectiveness is the same. Then the second comparison is in terms of cost. So writer has mentioned that it is without the same cost. Okay. So the cost and side effects are not the same. So definitely when we have to look at the main benefit. Okay. So if effectiveness is the same, it cannot be considered as a benefit. So now it could be either the cost or the side effect. So we now go to the paragraph and look at the answer choices, and we'll see the answer choices and we will exclude the answer choices which are related to effectiveness. So which option here describes effectiveness of the medication? Out of A, B, C, D, which option describes effectiveness? Which answer choice out of A, B, C, and D describes effectiveness of the medication? D, no. D is not effectiveness, it is convenience, isn't it? More flexible treatment options. It is about convenience. A is about effectiveness. It says they tend to have better patient outcomes. So, outcome is effectiveness. Now, here it says better patient outcomes. So, better than whom? Better than conventional treatment. But that is exactly opposite to what is given in the paragraph. Paragraph says they are as much effective as a drug, not better than that, right? So that helps me to rule out A because outcome is the same. Now, option D is more about flexibility, but comparison is done only in three ways. There is comparison on the base of cost, side effects, and effectiveness. So there is no comparison in terms of which one is more flexible. So I can also rule out D. There is no comment from writer on the flexibility, whether using an app is more convenient than taking a pill, right? The main debate is about whether it can actually replace a pill, whether it can be as effective as a pill, and whether it could have less cost and less side effects. And similarly, the patient-centered approach, which means the patient-centered approach, it means if it is designed or catered or developed, uh, you know, for an individual patient. Again, the paragraph doesn't give you any such clue that the app will be able to provide treatment options which are individualized, which are specific to that patient's circumstances. So that helps you to also rule out patient centered. Because again, there is no comparison of existing therapies with the new form of treatment in terms of which one is patient centered. So B is the correct answer here. They provide better patient experience. Why better patient experience? Because say the cost is less and the side effects are less, and effectiveness is as much as other forms of treatment, right? So all four answer choices that you will have in the reading part C, at first go, they all may seem correct. But when you try to understand the overall view of what the writer is trying to convey, writer's viewpoint, okay, then you would be able to understand or rule out the answer choices which are wrong. So here basically writer was comparing both the forms of treatment in terms of its effectiveness, cost, and side effects. And therefore we could rule out the flexibility option, and this we could rule out because it is contradictory. And the writer has not made any comment whether one is patient centered or not, or whether it is more patient centered than the treatment, other form of treatment. Right? So the approach in any of the reading part C question would be, you look at the question first. The question will give you a keyword in terms of what kind of question it is. So the writer suggests that, which means you have to find out writer's viewpoint. What does the writer believe about the benefit of digital therapeutics as compared to conventional treatment? Then you go to the paragraph and you see what sort of comparison is being made there. The answer choices that you will have will be inferential, which means you can't have the exact words repeated from the paragraph. Okay, it is something that you read the paragraph, you understand the paragraph, you try to make a mental summary of the paragraph, and then you compare that summary with the answer choices. That helps you get the correct answer. Now let us do next question. I'm trying to get it on screen. Just bear with me for a moment. Yeah. Now at this stage, we are not going to solve this question because it requires a different strategy. What we are going to do is just reading the paragraph so that you get to know the overview. Okay. In exam, definitely you will be solving all the questions in sequence. Here, why are we doing this is because we are learning a specific skill. So dealing with vocabulary question, And reference link question requires a different set of skills. We are going to learn those skills at the end of this session. But for now, I want you to read through this paragraph. So here the writer has given further description of what digital therapeutics is. A lot of new academic words here, which you must pay attention to. Ultimate quest. Quest. Does anyone know what is quest? Successor. Successor. Quest. Quest is not competition. No. Quest is desire. A very strong desire is quest. Okay, ultimate means that is something that everyone wants to do. It is something that everyone desires. Ultimate quest. And successor, any idea? Have you ever heard this word, successor and predecessor? Successor means someone who occupies the position, um, you know, after someone. For example, if I say Mr. Narendra Modi is a successor of Mr. Manmohan Singh, so he is occupying the same position that was occupied by Mr. Manmohan Singh. So, successor, someone who occupies the position of their of someone who was previously in that position. And predecessor is someone who was previously in that position. So Mr. Manmohan Singh becomes predecessor of Mr. Modi, and Mr. Modi becomes successor of Manmohan Singh. So here also you can see this. Digital drugs will become third phase of medicine, meaning the successor to the chemical and protein drugs we currently prescribe. Now this sentence makes sense? Yes, that they will occupy the position, the digital drugs will occupy the position of current medicine that we use, the chemical and the protein drugs, without again spending $1 billion for bringing one to the market. Because as you know, to launch one particular drug, one has to do intensive research, and it is, of course, $1 billion cost that one has to pay. And the writer goes even forward and says that once we will have this kind of therapy, we'll start thinking that there was a time where solution to everything was just giving pills. Okay? That is something has been written on the company's blog. The company who is actually developing a smartphone app. So reading this paragraph gives you further details about what is the writer trying to prove here. The writer again has here explained that having digital drugs will significantly reduce the cost, and they are going to be so effective that they would essentially replace the current form of medication. They are not alternative form of medication. They are not complementary measures. They will become mainstream drugs. Yeah. So make note of this words, quest, successor, and even if you are not aware about any other words from this paragraph, it's very, very important in the academic text that you are familiar with the academic vocabulary. Okay, so we are not solving this question at the moment. We'll come back to this question. We're moving on to question number 3 now. So now you have the question in front of you. Question says, Peter Hames' categorization of digital therapeutics or digital therapies illustrates. What do you mean by the word illustrate? To illustrate means to illustrate is to explain with example. To illustrate is to explain with example. So here the writer is explaining something with example of categorization given by Peter Hames. Now, as I mentioned earlier, whenever you will be looking at any of the reading part C paragraph, it will always have a topic sentence in the beginning. It could be either very first sentence or it could be second or third sentence within that paragraph. Now, how do I identify which is a topic sentence within that paragraph is, one way of looking at is as the topic sentences, it must be a claim. It should not be a factual statement. It must be a claim. For example, when people say this shampoo makes your hair shinier and smoother, so it is a claim. Nobody can prove it 100% correct because it varies depending on the quality of the hair or the type of water that one is using or the atmosphere one lives in. But they make a claim that it makes your hair shinier and smoother. So it is not fact; it is claim. So any topic sentence within a particular paragraph should look like a claim. If it is not looking like a claim, then it is a fact. Another way in which you can identify what is a topic sentence is to look for adjectives and adverbs within it. Okay? So here if you see the first sentence, it says, but defining exactly what a digital therapeutic actually is can be tricky. It is a fluid space that everyone is trying to categorize. So what is this topic sentence indicating us is that in this paragraph, the writer is trying to define exactly what is digital therapeutics or what are the categories that you have in the digital therapeutics. But the writer has given you in the beginning itself that it can be tricky and it is a fluid space. If something is a fluid space, it means it is something which is very difficult to categorize, right? If you have a fluid, can you actually make it into the portion? No. You'll have to shift it into different vessels, for example, to categorize it. But you can't categorize it within that particular vessel or that particular container. So it is a fluid space that everyone is trying to categorize. And then you have here the question is saying Peter Hames' categorization of digital therapies illustrates what can we understand from his categorization. So what is his categorization now? Here he has mentioned that Hames personally believes that digital therapies fall into two groups, which he calls medical augmentation or medication augmentation and medication replacement. So certain augmentation. Okay, augmentation means making it more effective or enhancing the effect of something is to augment. So some therapies can be working as medication augmentation, which means you give it a parallel to the medication. You give the medication and then you use the digital therapies to enhance the benefits. And another could be medication replacement, where you replace the protein or the chemical drug with a digital therapeutic. Now the question is asking, what is the writer trying to explain with the help of Peter Hames' categorization? Now look at the answer choices and try to see which answer choice summarizes the whole paragraph. Which answer choice provides you a summary of the paragraph. So your keywords here are different aims, disagreement, uncertainty, and need for research. But we don't see any sentence which justifies further research. Yes? Is there any sentence which says we need more research to categorize them? No, they've just mentioned that it is a fluid space that everyone is trying to categorize, and Peter Hames has his own way of categorizing it. But again, you do not have any counter view which says that no, Peter Hames' view is wrong. There is another way of looking at it. So D and C, D and B are easy to rule out because there's no information about needing more research. These sentences we have been able to show true. So we have already showed the effectiveness through peer-reviewed studies that the outcomes are better than drugs. So we don't need more research, and there is no disagreement because you do not have a counter view. You do not have other opinion which says no, Peter Hames' categorization is wrong, and this is another way of looking at it. A and C are very close. So which one is the correct answer, A or C? Is it A or C? Different aims of various treatments? Or is it uncertainty over precise terminology? I'm waiting for your responses. Which do you think is correct, A or C? You can type your responses in the chat box. You'll be able to see chat option. If we go to this specific example, that is just an example, not the main idea. And it is the example is not also the categorization. This is categorization, medication augmentation, and medication replacement. So you may think different aims of various treatments, but the categorization that Peter Hames has given is his personal belief, not a standard way of categorizing it. And therefore, C is the correct answer here. Uncertainty over precise terminology. Because it is not yet confirmed, or we do not yet have a clear definition. That is what the writer said here. It is still a fluid space that everyone is trying to categorize. And then the Peter Hames has his own way of categorization, but it is something he believes or he thinks. He doesn't have any strong evidence or studies or research to prove that they can be, differentiated or categorized in these two specific categories. Right? So disagreement means there are two different views. We don't have any different views here. There is no mention of further research. Okay? This is very close, different aims of various treatments, but that is not a standard way in which it can be categorized. It is his own personal belief. So what is the writer trying to categorize this? Because what is the writer trying to explain through this example is that because there is no specific terminology, everyone tries to define it in its own way. Yes, everyone is trying to categorize, but nobody has a specific, strong, robust evidence for it. Okay, now next question. Now for the next question, I'm going to set the timer for all of you, and I would ask you to follow the strategies that we have learned. Read the question, go to the paragraph, try to find out what topic is the writer trying to discuss in that particular paragraph, understand writer's viewpoint. Most of the questions in reading part C will be about understanding writer's viewpoint. Okay, so here it says the writer suggests that. I'm setting the timer for 3 minutes. Go ahead and type in the correct responses once you have done that. Consequently is as a result. To mimic is to copy. And the question is asking, they have adopted similar practices. So that is already established that they are following similar practices. Why are they following? In order to means what is their intention behind it? If we use in order to while describing purpose of something. For example, a CT scan was performed in order to rule out subdural hematoma. So in order to is used for purpose. So we don't have to find out whether they are following similar practices or not because it is already given. We have to find out why are they following similar practices? What is their intention? What are they trying to do? Or what are they trying to prove by following similar practices? And the writer has, in the very first sentence, said that they are careful to distance themselves from rest of the digital health market of wellness gadgets. That means they don't want to be compared to wellness gadgets. What they are trying to do is they have striven. To strive means to work hard, to struggle. From that, the word striven has come. Okay? Is to work hard. So they are working hard to copy the drug industry's practices, and they are following clinical trials, they are seeking regulatory approvals. Okay? And then the writer has mentioned here, although digital therapeutics don't usually need approval, so they don't need approval by FDA because they promote lifestyle and dietary changes that are deemed to be low risk. Deem means to believe. So that are believed to be low risk. So since digital therapeutics do not pose any risk, they don't usually require approvals, but they are still seeking. Why are they seeking approval? That is what the question is asking, right? And this is just an example that one such example is a big health company which opted to test a placebo version. I'm sure all of you know the meaning of word placebo. Yes. A peppermint kind of pill given, which doesn't actually have any chemical constituent in it, but the patient believes that they have taken the medication, so that is a placebo version, and then the patient's mindset actually helps relieve the symptom rather than the chemical itself. So do not get taken away by the example. Try to look at the overview. The overview is explaining that what these digital companies are doing is that they are trying to distance themselves from wellness gadgets. That means they don't want to be compared to wellness gadgets. They want to be compared to drug industry, the medications, the chemical drugs, the protein drugs. So which one seems to be the correct answer now? Type in your answers so that we can start discussing it further. Why do you think are they following the drug industry's standards and practices? Okay, so satisfy themselves that their products are effective? Um, it logically doesn't make sense, right? What would I achieve by satisfying myself? If I want to sell my product, I need to satisfy others. What would I achieve by satisfying myself? And it doesn't suggest anywhere that they themselves do not actually rely or they themselves doubt the effectiveness. No. Satisfy themselves means satisfy the company or the manufacturers themselves. No. How is that going to logically help them? If they want to sell their products, they need to satisfy the customers, not themselves. So C can be ruled out. How about others? What do you think is the correct answer? Let me know which two options are you confused about. D is also easy to rule out. Move into high risk areas of healthcare provision. It doesn't say anywhere that they have already been dealing with mild treatments and now they want to move into more diverse disease conditions or discrete physiological conditions. So D is also easy to rule out. Now let me know, is it A or B? I'm getting a few responses, but I'm waiting for others also to respond and then I would discuss or disclose the correct answer. So gain acceptance, yeah, gain acceptance is something that is already given. We have to find out why are they gaining acceptance. So that is the reason why A is the correct answer. Yes. They want to be taken as seriously as providers of healthcare. And this is the main challenge that you have in reading part C. The reading part C test assesses your critical thinking and analytical skills, which means how you are able to understand the inferred meaning. Okay, in reading part A or B, you are reading for a specific piece of information, but in reading part C, you are reading for inference. And when you are trying to draw inference, you will have to understand the summary of the whole paragraph. So B is written as it is, isn't it? It is given they have striven to mimic drug industry's practices and standards, and they have also tried to seek regulatory approvals. So here you can see gain acceptance from the relevant authorities. Question is asking why are they doing so? What is their motivation behind it? What is their intention behind it? So they want to be taken as seriously. They don't want to be considered as a wellness gadget. They want to be considered as a therapeutic, okay, the treatment option, and therefore A is the correct answer here. So it was good. Three of you could find the correct answer. Very good. Now let us move on to the next question. Okay. Now see, this is also a purpose question. The writer cites. So cite means to say or to give. Say is the right word. To cite means to say or to narrate. So writer is giving an example of water health. You see, V and H is capital here. That means it is a form name of a treatment modality as an example of a product that. So water health is one of the examples of what kind of products that you have to find out. Again, pay attention to the topic sentence that happens to be the most important aspect of the whole paragraph. So here it says whether a digital therapeutic involves a tracking sensor or coaching through an app. The acid test. What do you mean by the term acid test? Acid test. You must have heard this term before. What is the acid test? That's the main challenge, right? When we say it is the government's acid test. It means it is the main challenge that they face. And whether is used when we want to say either it is this or that. So the writer is trying to say whether the digital therapeutic is a tracking sensor or is it coaching through an app. So whatever form of digital therapeutics it is, what is the main challenge is that whether it provides a distinct means something which can be seen, okay, um, concrete, something which can be seen through evidence, distinct, measurable medical benefits to patients, and so can be recommended by the medical profession, because in medical profession the doctors would usually recommend treatment options only when you can see distinct and measurable. For example, when you can actually measure how much the blood sugar level has reduced, or how much the blood pressure has reduced, or how much weight has the patient been able to lose. So it has to be a measurable benefit and distinct. Only then it could be recommended by a medical profession. And then the writer says one that does is, so one treatment option that does is, so does what, this previous sentence, is what a health. And then the writer is describing what is it, but question is mainly asking, it is an example of a product that okay, I have received a few responses and I'm waiting for others to respond, and then I'll start discussion. Now this criteria, distinct, measurable medical benefits. Now these are not given by any authority. This is writer's viewpoint, isn't it? The writer has suggested that in his viewpoint, what matters the most is whether they can provide distinct and measurable medical benefits. So certain criteria set by regulators, no, we don't have any such criteria set by regulators. We do not have any information about other providers. So this is also easy to rule out. Yes, here the writer is setting up a profile. What would be the best form of treatment? The best form of treatment, be it a sensor or an app, it should be able to provide distinct and measurable medical benefits. So D is the correct answer. Fits the profile of a worthwhile. Worthwhile means something which is worth trying, or something which is beneficial, something which is effective. Worthwhile is effective. So D is the correct answer here. Fits the profile. What is the profile? That it should be able to provide distinct and measurable medical benefits. And here the writer says one that does is what a health. So here it is giving one of the examples of the drug which actually helps to provide measurable outcomes. Okay. Now for the next two questions, what we're going to do is I'm going to open up this forum for discussion. Okay, so here it says, what possible error by one drug company executive does the writer identify? So what point is the writer highlighting, which is an error by one drug company executive? Read the paragraph, and it is writer's viewpoint. Writer considers that as an error, right? So you would have first a statement by a drug company executive, and then the writer terming it as an erroneous or mistaken view. So what is that? The word skeptical, here it says some drug companies remain skeptical. So word skeptical means doubtful. So here is the drug company executive's statement. Blanche doesn't think the idea would have much impact. The idea, that is the digital therapeutics, would have much impact on drug development, and questioned. He's skeptical, he's doubtful. So he's questioning whether digital companies will ever be able to provide the value for money. The value for money means something which uh, saying that if you pay a money for something and if you get back the same amount of reward or the same amount of benefits, then it is value for money. So it may be expensive, but then it is worth spending that amount. That conventional medicines do. So he believes that conventional medicines provide value for money. And then this is writer's statement. But okay, so the writer is now countering what he has said. But as some digital therapies are already much cheaper than drug-based equivalents, and then the writer is giving one example, okay, and then saying cost may be what tips the scales in favor of digital. So when it comes to the cost, or when you compare the cost of protein-based drugs and the digital therapeutics, the data are in favor of digital therapeutics. So mainly here it is the question of um, the cost of the drug, right? That's what he's mainly questioning. And because of that, he thinks it would not have much impact on the drug development. So here you can see such a sentence claiming that new drugs will continue to be developed in the same way in the future. So this is half of what he has said. Question is asking what is the erroneous statement or calculation that he has done. So writer has not countered him on the basis of whether it will have any impact on the future drug development or not. The writer has countered him mainly in terms of affordability. So you have two options here dealing with affordability, A and D, arguing that costs are usually easier for traditional manufacturers to control and drugs will always be the best option for affordable medical treatment. But writer has countered it by saying that no, in fact, the it is the data are in favor of digital. That means digital therapies are more affordable than the chemical constituent. So A is the correct answer here, not D, because costs are usually easier for traditional manufacturers to control. He's not giving data as to what is easy to control. He's saying it would be the traditional drugs will be cheaper than the digital therapeutics. So drugs will always be the best option. So drugs here refer to the traditional or the chemical constituent. He believes that they will be the best option because he says digital therapies will never be able to provide the value for money. He is questioning whether they will ever be able to provide the value for money, whether they would be available at an affordable rate or not, as the conventional medicines do. So A is clearly representing the manufacturers or the drug executives viewpoint, which writer has countered by saying that no, he's wrong. In fact, digital therapies are cheaper than the traditional medications. Okay, so all the answer choices that you will come across in reading part C, they will be inferential, will not have exact same words repeated in the answer choices. So now let us look at vocabulary question. We have an entirely separate session on those type of questions to help you with tips and techniques, that is context clue questions. If you want to look at it, you can go through the reading part C strategies and go through the video of context clue questions. Definitely it would be covered in the class as well, but till then if you have time and if you think you want to do that, you can do it. From the classroom section, you'll go to the reading part C strategies and you will see context clue strategies. So these kind of questions where you have to find out meaning of a specific word or a phrase within that particular paragraph is known as context clue. Clue means the hints, context means the background. So here the question is asking the word fire hose in the phrase a fire hose of data is used to emphasize the. To emphasize is to stress, to highlight, to show the importance. And the phrase is fire hose of data. That means it has something to do with data. I'm sure all of you understand the meaning of word data. So what we do in this kind of question is, here we are not looking for a summary. We're looking for the meaning of this word in a specific context. So if you look at the first sentence, Ames believes that someday digital therapeutic companies may even outstrip drug companies when it comes to evidence. So what is the topic sentence? What is the writer trying to discuss in this paragraph is the amount of evidence, and then it is comparison of evidence that drug companies have along with the evidence that digital therapeutic companies have. And the writer says they may even outstrip. To outstrip means to do much better, to move ahead of someone. So they would be able to do much better as compared to drug companies. So what is the writer trying to say here is that the digital therapeutic companies will have more evidence than the drug companies. And then the writer is using this phrase, we are digital. So we are going to have a fire hose of data. So data is the evidence here. And then the writer has further clarified it. Pharmaceutical companies don't track the real world result. So because writer has said that digital therapeutics will do better, he has to give evidence to support it. So he's saying as a digital therapeutic companies, they can easily keep on getting data because when they have an app, yes, they can constantly get the data from the user. And it's not in the drug company's interest because they have already sold the drug. So drug companies stop collecting data once they have got the drug in the market. But digital companies, because they are an app, so they constantly get the data. So what does the term fire hose of data mean here? So you're not looking for the dictionary meaning of word fire hose, but you're looking for contextual meaning. What is the writer trying to say here? So you have options here. Uh, it says the ease with which effectiveness can be proven, the types of sales information, volume of research information, and value of information. What is the idea that he's trying to highlight? Now, the medical insurance company comes later on, right? It has nothing to do with this phrase, fire hose of data. So that can be completely excluded because here you're not looking for overall meaning. You're looking for the meaning of that particular phrase or a sentence. So in that sentence, the writer is not referring to insurance policies in general. And there is no type of information as such. Again, effectiveness, no. It's not about effectiveness of medication, right? The writer has clearly said when it comes to evidence, digital therapeutics will outperform, not when it comes to effectiveness. So yes, C is the correct answer. Volume of research. They are going to have more data. They are going to keep on getting the data. And that's going to help them to have volume of research information. C is the correct answer. Okay. Now, question number 2, which we skipped in the beginning, that is reference link question. So here it says the word third phase of medicine. Okay, I am sorry, this is again a vocabulary question, not a reference link question. So maybe all of you can give this a try since I have already explained you how to do the vocabulary questions. Give this a try. You need to identify whether the word you are referring to is used in what context. Try to first understand the whole context of the paragraph. So here the context is mainly the writer has stated in the beginning itself that digital therapeutics are becoming very popular, and some predict that digital drugs will become the third phase of medicine. So, the third phase of medicine, what is the writer trying to say by it is the writer has explained it here, meaning the successor to the chemical and protein drugs we currently prescribe. And third phase of medicine, it says, right? Means it has to be a part of medicine. And then the next phrase, which is defining it, successor to the chemical and protein drugs. Successor is the replacement. So from that, can you now identify the word third phrase? What is it trying to, what is the writer trying to indicate with the phrase third phase? Phase is the stage, and third phase. See, some of the answer choices will be pure distractor. For example, here you have one sentence, but without the $1 billion cost. Okay. Now this is a pure distractor. This is not the main idea that is being highlighted through the word third phase. The writer is citing an additional benefits that, they will replace the current drug without having to spend too much on it. So third phase is not used to highlight the cost of developing new types of medication. And methods of administering, which means what is methods of administering is when you administer through an injection or when you administer the medication through a patch. But we have understood through these two paragraphs that when they talk about digital therapeutics, they are not talking about a way in which medication can be um, administered, but it is a replacement for the medication. So method of administering can also be ruled out. So basically again, the word third phase is not used in relation to the cost. So all the cost related options can be ruled out. And what we have understood through these two paragraphs is digital therapies are not a way in which you can administer medication. It is not a device through which you can administer medication. No, they are the app that promote lifestyle. So C or D is the correct answer here. The type of medication that we will be available for treatment. It will be a new type of medication. It will be successor to the chemical and protein drugs. D is the correct answer here. Right. So you have in all the reading part C text, you will have 2 vocabulary questions and 2 reference link questions. Each text you'll have 1 vocabulary question and 1 reference link question. But in reading part C, you have 2 texts and 16 questions. You get approximately 32 minutes time to solve 16 questions. This happens to be the most difficult part of the reading test, and it requires vigorous practice, particularly being familiar with how academic texts are written. Okay, that's something very, very important, because you might have experienced through this that they are very distinct topics, very different than what you read in the textbooks. Right? They are the latest things, and then they are opinionated texts. That makes it even more difficult to understand what the writer's implied meaning is from that particular statement. Okay, Now, what you can do is this, test I was sharing is test 3 from classroom, and we have done one passage today, but it has another passage as well. So what you need to do is you need to go through the reading part C, test 3 from classroom section, and try to solve another passage which will have 8 questions in total, the way we did today. Okay, and do it today itself. That will give you further practice, a further opportunity to practice this kind of questions. And after that, you will be able to view my video as well there, explaining each of the question in detail. So you can do it either way around. You can go through the video and simultaneously solve the questions, because in the video as well I would be explaining the keywords, so you can do it through the video as well. And if you don't have that much amount of time, then you can first do the whole test and then go through the video for understanding. Both the way it is going to be as effective.